Hello and welcome back to another Halloween special. In this video I'm gonna review Dungeon Keeper. Dungeon Keeper is a real-time strategy game that was developed by Bullfrog Productions and it was released by Electronic Arts in the year 1997 for PC-DOS and Windows 95. This is the German version of the game, so all the in-game footage will be in the German language. The game was created by Peter Molyneux, a founder of Bullfrog Productions, who also created games like, for instance, Populous, Powermonger, Magic Carpet, and he also created the Fable video game series. The very cool and interesting thing about Dungeon Keeper is that in this game you are playing the bad guy. You are a dungeon keeper and you try to conquer an unnamed land and turn it from, well, an idyllic, peaceful wonderland into a disgusting hellhole. Why? Well, it's not mentioned why, but I guess it's because we can. Yes, we can. Now it is your task to build a dungeon in each of the 20 regions/levels and defend it against everything that tries to cross your plans, until you defeated the guardians or other dungeon keepers of each region, and then we're gonna break through the surface and let chaos and insanity take over. You know how they say everything good comes from above? Well, a dungeon keeper comes from down below. The first couple of levels are basically tutorial levels, where you learn the controls and how to build and defend a dungeon, starting with the lowest creatures, basic rooms and spells, and progressing the levels you get new rooms, spells and new creatures. The levels start for the most part the same way. At the beginning you have your dungeon heart, which represents your physical presence in the level and which you have to protect at all costs, since if it gets destroyed you lose the level. And you have a couple of imps, which are your workers. Somewhere nearby you will also have an entrance and some gold or gem reserves. Connecting and occupying an entrance is one of your first tasks, which allows other creatures to enter your dungeon and become your minions. Those creatures are for the most part your army, that you're gonna use to attack enemy units and to defend your realm. But some of them are also very good researchers, which will create new magic spells for you, and others are born craftsmen, which will build traps and doors to secure your dungeon. Even though serving and dying for you should be reward enough for those creatures, they still want to get paid, have a place to sleep and free living meals every day, or they're gonna leave your dungeon. Therefore you have to build a lair so they have a place to sleep, then a hatchery for some fresh chicken nuggets, and a treasure room where all your gold will be stored. Those are your basic and most important rooms in the game. Later on you get 10 more rooms which will give you and your minions new options / abilities, and they will also lure other stronger creatures into your dungeon. A training room allows you to train your creatures. Training and fighting increases their experience, and sooner or later they will level up. They get stronger and they learn new abilities like range attacks, healing, speed boosts, and many more. A library allows your creatures to research magic spells for you. In a workshop, your creatures find all the tools they need to build traps and doors. A prison allows you to order your minions to capture enemy units instead of beating them to death with their own shoes. And if you also have a torture chamber, you can use it for those new guests. Maybe they come to realize that working for you is not a bad idea and join you, when they stop having too much fun with the torturers. For spiritual balance you can also build a temple, and if you don't want the dead bodies of fallen creatures in battle to rot, build a graveyard. Some of them can be recycled and they will rise as vampires. Then you can also build barracks if you want to have groups out of specific creatures. Guard posts are basically lookouts that you can use as an extra protection at an enemy border, for instance, and the so-called scavenger room gives you the ability to headhunt enemy units and turn them onto your side. Lastly, you can also build bridges over water and lava, and even though they are placed in the rooms menu, I wouldn't count them as a room. Like in many other games and in real life, also in Dungeon Keeper, money talks, or actually gold. With gold you build rooms, pay your minions salary, train them and cast magic spells. You earn gold by mining gold or gem reserves, by selling rooms, traps or doors. Killed heroes and lords of the land / the knight will also leave some gold behind. And by occupying an enemy's or hidden treasure room, provided of course that there's actually some gold in the treasure room. The goal of each level varies, but for the most part you either have to defeat one or more rivaling dungeon keepers by destroying the dungeon heart, or you have to fend off groups of heroes which will come through magical hero portals, digging their way to your dungeon until the Lord of the Land / the Knight arrives with the final group, and then you have to defeat him in order to take over the region / to advance to the next level.
Achtung, der Ritter kommt.
Wir kommen, um die Welt vom Bösen zu befreien.
Eure Kreaturen werden angegriffen. Eure Kreaturen stürzen sich auf den Gegner. Eure Untergebenen tragen den Sieg davon. Eure Untergebenen tragen den Sieg davon. Ihr habt dieses Königreich erobert.
In Dungeon Keeper there are a total of 30 different types of units, 17 creatures and 13 types of heroes. As creatures there are imps, flies, beetles, spiders, demon spawns, ghosts, hellhounds, skeletons, trolls, orcs, warlocks, tentacles, dark mistresses, bile demons, dragons, vampires, and the strongest creature of them all is the Horned Reaper. This creature is also the mascot of the game. As heroes there are the tunnelers, thieves, archers, fairies, monks, priests, barbarians, mountain dwarfs, giants, samurais, wizards, knights, and the strongest of them all is the Avatar. He's basically the final boss in the last level, and some of you might recognize him because he's the Avatar champion of Britannia from Ultima 8 Pagan, from the Ultima series. All the creatures and heroes, if you converted them, have their own whims, and some of them also oddities. They get tired, hungry, angry, afraid, pissed off, and even one of them can run amok. In terms of oddities, there are some units which don't get along with others, and sooner or later they are going to kill each other, like spiders and flies, warlocks and vampires, or hellhounds and demon spawns. But it is possible to have all those creatures and keep them from getting on their throats. But you have to make some precautions and keeping an eye on them as well. Warlocks, for instance, are very arrogant creatures. They get angry if you pick them up and hold them in your hands for a longer time. And they also start attacking other creatures if they get disturbed during the research by creatures wandering through their library. Spiders love to crawl down to the prison and freeze prisoners for fun if you have any. Dark mistresses have a fable for the torch chamber, and so on. Now I could go on and talk about every creature/hero and tell you their strengths, weaknesses and abilities, but this would take forever. Still, there's one creature that I want to talk about, which is the Imp. The Imp is the lowest and weakest creature in the game, but also the bare bone of your dungeon. They tunnel through the dirt, mine the gold or gems. They reinforce your dungeon walls so that enemy imps and tunnelers can't break through. They occupy every space and room they have access to for you, which increases your realm and also your sphere of influence. Plus, they make all the transportations. They bring the gold in the treasure room. After you've placed the trap, they deliver and set it up. If you have a prison and gave the order to capture enemy units, they pick up the unconscious bodies and take them to the prison, or they bury the dead bodies if you have a graveyard. Since they make so many things, it is just logical that they should do their chores as fast as possible, or even faster. Now you can increase their focus and speed slightly by slapping them every once in a while, which you can do with every minion/prisoner under your command. Tons of fun and very relaxing, but not really constructive. A much better idea is to train your imps and let them reach at least level 3, because then they get the speed boost ability, which they're gonna use permanently. Now they do all their chores twice as fast, but a healthy slap every once in a while can't hurt either, at least not you. If necessary, imps also have the ability to fight and defend themselves, but even on its maximum level, which by the way is level 10, and each unit starts normally with level 1 and can be leveled up to level 10. The imp still is a very weak creature, and only if they are in a majority they can take down weaker creatures or heroes. One other thing that sets the imps apart from every other unit is that the imps are magical summoned creatures. It is the second spell in your magic spell inventory/menu. Like every other spell, using it will cost you some gold, and with every time you summon another imp, it will get more expensive. There are a total of 16 magic spells available in the game, and magic is one of the few things that you can use outside your realm. The very first spell that you have right from the beginning is one of the coolest spells that I have ever seen, at least at that time, in a video game, and it is very unique for a strategy game. It is called Possess Creature, and like the name already says, it allows you to possess one of your minions. As soon as you cast the spell, the game switches into a first-person perspective, and now you control this unit with all its abilities until you end the spell or the unit dies. It is the only spell that doesn't cost you any gold, and besides using the spell for exploring your own dungeon from a first-person perspective or trying out all the different creatures, their abilities and the way they see the world, since some creatures have a different kind of vision, it can also come in handy in specific situations. Since even though each unit uses its abilities effectively, they all act like Rambos. And what I mean by that is, if there is a duel between an archer and a warlock, both will fire at each other until one of them bites the dust, without trying to dodge the enemy's projectiles. But as a player, you will also try dodging enemy projectiles, especially if you played a lot of first-person shooter games like I have. Therefore you can take on a couple of enemy units at once without risking any other of your troops. But when it comes to bigger battles, I would not recommend this strategy because it's mostly chaotic and you hardly can differentiate between friends or foes. Of course, also the rest of the spells are very useful as well. For instance, you can reveal small areas that you have not explored yet for a short time, which is helpful for spying out an enemy dungeon. You can use fighting spells like a lightning bolt or infect an enemy unit with a deadly virus that spreads on contact with other units. You also have a couple of spells that will improve or help your minions, like a shield spell, invisibility, or a healing spell, and the most expensive spell of them all allows you to remove the reinforcements of an enemy's dungeon wall, which at first doesn't sound that exciting and powerful at all, but if you are trying to invade an enemy dungeon, this spell can make your life so much easier, since most of the times there will be only one or maybe two ways / doors available to enter the enemy's dungeon, and they are many times secured with traps. Plus they are never close to the dungeon heart, which means that it will take your troops a long time to reach the dungeon heart and they will have to fight the entire enemy army. But with this spell and a little bit of planning, you can break through a wall directly next to the heart, or at least a room close by, and save a lot of time and troops as well. Beside your magic spells, you can also find special spells in most of the levels. Those spells can be used only once and they have to be in your realm in order to activate them. If imps find those spells, they take them to your library. Those spells can bring back a dead unit of your choice, steal a random enemy unit for your side, give all your units a level up, transfer a unit of your choice to the next level, or unlock a bonus level. Like I already mentioned before, you can also build traps and doors in the workshop, which you can use to secure your dungeon or hotspots like the hero portals. There are 4 different kinds of doors and 5 different kinds of traps available. My favorite trap is the boulder trap, which is a giant boulder with spikes around it that can plow through entire armies without any problems at all. Only the avatar is immune to that kind of trap, and hopefully none of your creatures is anywhere nearby if this trap gets triggered, since it will also crush your own troops as well, so be careful. In the German version this trap is called the Indie Trap because it is basically the same track like in the beginning scene of the first Indiana Jones movie. And the German version is also slightly censored. They removed most of the blood from the death animations and they censored also some of the torture scenes. The single player campaign consists out of 20 levels, plus there are 5 bonus levels that you can unlock. There's also multiplayer available where up to 8 players can play against each other, but I've never played it so I can't tell you more about it, sorry. In my opinion the game has an average difficulty level overall. Surely there are some levels which are easier and some are harder to beat. For me, there was only one level in the second half of the game that I would say was very hard. But even this level wasn't that hard anymore after I've replayed the previous level and found a creature transfer spell, which allowed me to start the next level with a level 10 dragon. So again, I would say the game's difficulty level is average and you can save your game at any time in a level, which is always helpful. Plus, right from the beginning, the game explains everything and at any time in a level it tells you everything important that is going on and notifies you about it. You control the game with mouse and keyboard. With the mouse you control the cursor, which changes between an arrow, a pike or the dungeon keeper hand, depending on where you are pointing it. In the menus and over everything that you can't interact with, it is an arrow. Over dirt, gold or gem reserve it turns into the pike, and over the rest it turns into the hand. With the hand you can pick up to 8 units and drop them everywhere in your realm. You can slap every unit under your command and every enemy unit which you have captured, and you can set off the boulder trap by slapping it, plus while rolling you can change its heading by slapping it again. With the keyboard you rotate and zoom in and out the camera, and the controls while possessing a unit are the same like in a first-person shooter game. For its time, Dungeon Keeper has some very good graphics. For me personally, the lighting was always a highlight in the game. It uses a modified version of the Magic Carpet graphics engine, which gives the game its own look. Still today, I like the graphics a lot and the looks of the game, even though they are very pixelated, especially in the first person perspective. The sound effects are good and the music is just great. Also, the voice actors did a very good job in my opinion, at least in the German version. I haven't played the English version, but I've watched a couple of videos online, and from what I've saw so far, I would also say that the English voice actors did also a very good job too. And finally, I can only say I love the atmosphere in this game and also the black humor. For me, Dungeon Keeper is a really cool game with a great atmosphere that I can highly recommend, especially for Halloween. Now, 2 months after the game was released, Electronic Arts released a mission disc for it called Deeper Dungeons, which included 15 new missions for the single player and 15 new maps for the multiplayer. Then in 1989, Electronic Arts released a Dungeon Keeper Gold Edition, which included the original game plus Deeper Dungeons. Then in 1999, Dungeon Keeper 2 was released for Windows 95 and Windows 98, and there was also supposed to be a third part of the game, but it was cancelled during the development, And in 2013, Electronic Arts released Dungeon Keeper the mobile game, but from what I've heard of, it was a complete disaster and yeah, its own horror story, so let's never talk about it again. And this brings me now to the end of my review of Dungeon Keeper for PC-DOS/Windows 95, a perfect game for Halloween. I hope you enjoyed the show, maybe see you next time, take care, bye, and Happy Halloween!